welcome back to Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Did you miss us? I missed us. I hope my co-host missed us. We know it's been a while, but we're back, and we're ready to talk more David Lynch, as we're going to talk the HBO series Hotel Room. And, of course, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, wonderful friend, and someone who knows that people are no damn good, Xan Sprouse. How you doing, Xan?
Hey, Charles. How's it going?
You had a kind of a rough day today.
I had a rough day. I still have a headache from crying, so I think we should get back to normal and start talking about David Lynch things, because David Lynch is my comfort zone.
There you go. I can't think of anything better.
No.
So I'm definitely glad to talk about this. This is something that you've been wanting to talk about for a while now. And we were struggling there to find it, and then we figured out, like, I found it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so we can maybe make this work. So here at episode 97, we're going to talk the first episode, like I said, of the HBO series Hotel Room, which was released back in 1993. They actually released the first 3 episodes back to back to back. The only 3 episodes, as it turns out.
Right. This series did not particularly go over well.
No.
It got a kind of a bad review from the New York Times, where they said that David Lynch has long raised suspicions that his work would be most at home on late night television, but Hotel Room indicates otherwise. So I disagree.
Yeah, I think Twin Peaks: The Return kind of proved it was okay.
Yeah. And I definitely think, I don't know if late night television is necessary, but I definitely think not network censor would be good. But yeah, the New York Times goes on to say that these anecdotes are as if banality were a form of wit. I mean, it's very scathing.
Yeah. It kind of feels like a hit piece, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's, a Newsday called it tedious, and said that really it's only if you're a diehard Twin Peaks fan you're going to want to watch it, and even then you're not going to be all that happy about it. But it sort of compares it to The Twilight Zone and Grand Hotel.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of vibe I get from this.
Yeah, which DJ Rachel Friend and I talked about Grand Hotel since it was a picture. And Grand Hotel, it's the Grand Hotel. People come, people go, and they all have stories. Is essentially how that works. And this actually reminded me, Charles, a little bit more of Nightmare Cafe.
I was just going to say that. I was waiting for a pause so I could jump in and say, yes, it does remind me. It reminded me of Nightmare Cafe as well, where, every week you have somebody come into the restaurant and they've got a story and we tell their story.
Yeah, it's definitely shorter.
Yeah.
With that. And, we'll talk about this more because tonight we are just doing the first of the 3 vignettes or episodes called Tricks.
Yes.
And we'll talk about this more when we do other episodes, but there is a bellhop and a maid.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about them.
And they don't age, even though we jump back and forth in time, decades, 1936 all the way to 1992 and some place in between. You still have the same maids and the same bellhops. And so they remind me of the 2 purgatory characters from Nightmare.
Yeah, it's very much the, got a Hotel California vibe a little bit here.
Little bit, yeah. Or even...
But Nightmare Cafe is what I was thinking of when I was watching this.
Nightmare Cafe, Fantasy Island even? A little bit. Where you've got... Because
you do have the kind of a dark twist ending.
Well, and you have, when you're in the hotel room... Which does feel
Twilight Zone, too, obviously.
Yeah, when you're in the hotel room, you kind of have only what you take with you in there.
Right.
But the comparison to the Twilight Zone, I get it. But at the same time, I don't. But I think that there are more apt descriptions. Like I said, I think Nightmare Cafe is probably the most apt description of it.
Right.
Because there is a constant.
Yeah.
In this, it's always.
In this case, it's a hotel room. The room 603.
Room 603 is the same throughout. You have the bellhop and the maid. Whereas the Twilight Zone, there's no constant.
Right.
So something, like I said, like a Nightmare Cafe or a Fantasy Island or something. I think that's more
a consistent location. Yeah, exactly. Right. A consistent setting. Yeah. So the basic premise for this series, it's an anthology. It's intended as an anthology series. So each episode has a different cast. But again, the hotel room 603, is the constant, like you said, and it's inside what is this New York City-based hotel called the Railroad Hotel.
Right.
And then like you said, it takes place each episode takes place in different decades. This one that we're going to talk about with Tricks takes place in 1969. September 1969. Oh, so a whole 3 months after I was born. Hooray.
Right.
And, and so, like you said, the main constants are the only real connection is the room and Sean the bellboy, who's played by this Clark Heathcliff Brawley, and the maid, who is played by Camilla Overby Ruse.
Right. And
like you said, they don't age. Yeah. They're timeless.
They don't age, and they don't seem to have, they're not puppet masters like a Mr. Rourke or a Blackie.
Yes. They're not active in this. They're
right. For those of you who have not seen Nightmare Cafe, please look for it on.
Yeah. It wasn't on very long.
Right. Please look for it on YouTube or somewhere, because
I want to say it was on like maybe 7 episodes, or I don't know if I got the full 13 at least. But
I don't even remember. It's been,
because I barely remember that show, but I know the basic premise of it. I know I liked it.
Yeah, and it was the reason I watched it is because Blackie, who is sort of the puppet master, is he the devil? Is he God? I don't know. But it's Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Who is most famously the original Freddy Krueger.
Right.
So
it made perfect sense to get the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street to be in Nightmare Cafe as the narrator, wasn't he? Wasn't he the narrator?
He was the narrator, and he was Blackie. He was like the boss of the Nightmare Cafe.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
And I'm trying to look it up because I can't remember the two characters' names, but they were more like I said, it was kind of like the reboot of Fantasy Island, where you get the feeling that this is a purgatory for the people who work for him.
Right. Yes.
And that's what Nightmare Cafe was. These were two people who, Frank and Faye. That's their names.
That's right. That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. They both die. 6 episodes. Yeah.
6 episodes. Whole episodes. All right.
Yeah. They both die in.
And I watched all of them.
Sort of calamitous ways, but they sort of come back to life because Blackie has brought them back to life to work at the Nightmare Cafe. And the Nightmare Cafe essentially gives people in similar situations kind of a second chance. The second chance that Frank and Faye did not get.
Right.
So that's what Blackie is there for. So Blackie's like kind of the devil, kind of God, kind of like a Mr. Rourke. But we don't have any and I don't know if David Lynch was going to go that way.
Yeah.
With Hotel Room when it came to the maid and the bellhop, but I think it was more of a way to make the hotel its own character. Okay. Was to have these sort of timeless people in the hotel.
Okay.
But yeah, but they are constant. So something is weird with this hotel. Something's up with it.
Yeah. By the way, did you know that they're bringing Fantasy Island back? Speaking of which.
No, who's going to do it this time? Oh, yes, it is, and it's a woman as Mr. Rourke, right?
Yeah, she's going to be like Mr. Rourke's daughter.
Yeah, and who is it? It's somebody cool.
Rosalind Sanchez.
Okay, I thought it was somebody cool, but I don't know who Rosalind Sanchez is.
She was in Grand Hotel and Devious Maids.
Okay.
So I don't know who that is either. No, but she does look like someone who could be Ricardo Montalban's daughter.
Okay, that's cool.
She's definitely Hispanic. So.
Okay.
Oh wait, here I actually have a picture here I can show you. Obviously, you out there in podcast land.
You have the Googles.
Yeah, I have the Googles right here. So here she's kind of. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that
a little bit.
Yeah.
So
she definitely.
She's kind of glammed up in this photo, but yeah.
She's got some Noonie and Singh blood in her.
A little bit, yeah. Well, that eugenics program from back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It carried through. But
I stab at thee.
I stab at thee. Yeah. for more of this, go to Drunk Cinema, where we talk about Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. I think the Twilight Zone comparisons probably come from just, the opening narration, because, Lynch does a very Rod Serling-esque opening, narration. He says and apparently this carries through, he says, for a millennium, the space for the hotel room existed, undefined. I guess I should do it like Lynch, right? For a millennium.
No, you're doing it like Gordon Cole.
I know. That's what I was doing. I know. That's my easy David Lynch impression. So, the space for the hotel room existed undefined.
The hotel room will set your socks on fire.
Right. It has got him cranked up to the max. Yeah.
It's the hotel room that makes a guy wish he spoke a little French.
So, and then mankind captured it, gave it shape, and passed through. And sometimes when passing through, they found themselves brushing up against the secret names of truth, whatever those are.
Well,
yeah,
exactly. You know what's interesting, Charles, and I hate to make this comparison.
Yeah, but don't you get like he was trying to go for a Serling vibe there a little bit?
I can see that he's trying to go for a Serling vibe there, but the show itself,
no.
I don't feel like oftentimes. I mean, there are a lot of episodes of the Twilight Zone that do take place in a hotel room, like Nervous Man in a $4 Room, or the Jeopardy Room, or Very Unusual Camera, things like that, where crazy stuff does happen in a hotel room in the Twilight Zone. But the Twilight Zone, most of the time, was some sort of morality play.
Right.
But I don't think these were like that.
No.
I don't think these had that aspect to them, because sometimes it's just weird stuff. Sometimes they're just terrible people.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to talk about when we talk about tricks today, the vibe that, you get watching Harry Dean Stanton's character, Moe Boca, and Freddie Jones's character, Lou Holchak. You kind of, at least I got this vibe, because I watched this episode twice now. I get the vibe that it's almost like you're kind of wondering, does Harry Dean Stanton suffer from dissociative identity disorder?
Yes, I wondered that too.
I mean, is it just me? Because, I kind of wonder, like, well, did Lou really exist?
It was Lou sort of felt like the Tyler Durden character in this. Yeah. But there's that scene where Glenne Headly is like, call the cops, these guys.
Right.
And she refers to them as plural.
Right.
So,
and I get that, but
she's a hooker. She could have been paid to pretend like there's a friend there or something.
And she was also stoned out of her mind, as we're
she was stoned out of her mind. Yeah.
So maybe if for whatever reason Moe, was behaving as two people, maybe she imagined perhaps that he was two people.
That's very possible. Yeah. So I definitely got that feeling too. So let's
run this down.
Let's go ahead and talk about.
Let's run this down.
This episode down. Yeah. This was written by Barry Gifford, who of course wrote Wild at Heart.
Right, and also writes the third episode of Hotel Room, Blackout.
Right.
Yeah. And Lost Highway.
And I think wasn't this one directed by Peter Deming also?
No, this one's directed by David Lynch.
David Lynch did this one? Okay.
He did the first and the third.
Peter Deming did the cinematography. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And this was created by Monty Montgomery, the cowboy, our favorite cowboy, and David Lynch. So.
Mm-hmm. Which I would like to see more of. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of. Oh, and David Lynch sort of kind of kept it in the family. Mary Sweeney is the editor on this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joanna Ray does the casting.
Oh yeah, it's all.
You've got Angelo Badalamenti doing the score, of course, And there's
Right.
there's a couple of points, and that's one of the things I want to mention real quick. You get a very Twin Peaks vibe when you get that. You start hearing the,
Mhm.
screechy, ominous, horrific tone that Angelo
Right.
used in Fire Walk with Me.
Exactly. And, you almost, I give a lot of points to David Lynch for making this not have little winks and nods to Twin Peaks.
Right.
Because, we could have had a waiting room,
Oh, yeah.
hallway.
Yeah.
We talked before about
The floor
how
could have been,
floor
chevron pattern, that kind of thing. Yeah.
in the waiting room is the same floor in Henry Spencer's apartment building. We've had this discussion.
Yes.
So
Yes, we have.
I think he was trying to do something different because, as David Lynch has said, he really does enjoy the medium of television.
Mm-hmm.
But the medium of television has kind of screwed him over a lot. And I think this was no exception. I think it's disappointing that we only got to see 3 episodes. I will say that we'll talk more about these later. I will say that I think this one is sort of the weakest of the 3.
Right.
Um,
and you went ahead and watched all 3. We talked about this, that
I have not
before we recorded, that I held off. I was like, I'm watching the first one and that's it. I'm stopping right here.
I will say this is the weakest of the 3. The second one is the least David Lynch of the 3.
Which makes sense because he didn't direct it.
Right. And it was written by Jay McInerney.
Yeah.
So it's very, Jay McInerney's taken the 90s. So.
Right. Well, we'll talk more about that next time, obviously.
We'll talk more about that next time. But anyway, so what's going on in this episode is that Harry Dean Stanton, who is a character named Moe,
right, Moe Boca.
He shows up at the hotel room 603, with a hooker named Darlene, who is played by Glenne Headly.
Which blew my mind because I remember her obviously from playing Tess Trueheart in the Dick Tracy movie.
Dick Tracy, right, exactly. Charles, have you ever seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels?
I have not, but I know that she's in it. She's also in Dr. Detroit, which I have seen.
That's another one I would say is a really good Glenne Headly movie. But yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I think, is a great Glenne Headly movie.
And she played the bartender in the X-Files movie, by the way. The first one, Fight the Future.
She did.
Yep.
That's right.
When Mulder comes in and, he talks about him being spooky. His nickname is Spooky. That's her.
Spooky Mulder.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's right. I forgot all about that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's interesting about Glenne Headly,
right,
is that she reminds me a lot of Marla Rubinoff.
Yeah.
Who is our Betty Hudson.
Yeah, and On the Air that we talked about, yeah.
So part of me wonders, was Glenne Headly maybe envisioned for On the Air? Did he want Marla Rubinoff for this hotel room? They're very similar actresses in look and in vocal cadence.
Yeah, they do have kind of that innocent, naive voice, that vocal range. Their voice, it talks kind of like a little bit of a sweet, innocent.
My mother is my ironing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, right.
And so Glenne Headly is this hooker named Darlene.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in this room, and he's giving her the money, and they're doing their transaction, and then there's a knock on the door, and it's Lou.
Yeah.
Somebody from Moe's past, who obviously he knows Moe.
Well, you're skipping a lot of stuff here, so.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm just trying to get to where we have all 3 people in the room.
No. I'll try to breeze through it because I know that's where the things really heat up. But I like the fact that Sean the Bellboy escorts him there, and he Moe asks Arlene if she wants anything to drink. So he doesn't really even know her name. She corrects him. It's like
he doesn't know her actual name.
It's Darlene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is my mom's name. Or middle name.
That's
my mom's middle name.
Aunt name.
Yeah.
I had an aunt named Darlene. Well, she's still my aunt. Yeah.
Right.
She was married to my uncle who is no longer with us, but yeah, she's my cousin's mother, so she's still my aunt.
Right.
Yeah, my Aunt Darlene.
But he orders orders down to room service, asks for Jim Beam bourbon whiskey and a couple of chimneys. And so he has to, for one thing, he's very insistent about the type of bourbon he wants. And he has to explain what chimney glasses are.
Right.
So if you ever wonder, if you hear that term, a couple of chimneys, it's those long, skinny glasses.
It's like a mint julep glass.
Yeah, like a chimney. So it kind of looks like a chimney a little bit. But so you talk about that. She pulls out a cigarette, and it turns out it's a marijuana cigarette. And he's like, is that what I think it is? And she's like, I don't know.
Is that the reefer?
Yeah, exactly. The reefer madness. But she's like, I don't know, mister. How do I know what you think?
Yeah.
And then he talks about, he kneels down beside her. And this is where it gets a little creepy, where he says, and I thought this was hilarious. This is a very Lynchian line. The White Knight is about to undertake a dangerous journey through the dark forest.
Man, that is.
Yeah. So if you can get, the implication there.
I think even hookers would be like, dude, whatever.
Right. Exactly. Well, and
like, what the hell?
Well, her response is like, she's all monotone about it. Goes like, far out. You're into fairy tales, huh? So you kind of figure this is something she's heard before or whatever. Is very jaded about.
Right.
And then she says, well, before the White Knight takes out his sword, he has to pay tribute to the fair maiden, meaning he needs to pay it.
He has to pay her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, he figures that out. And it's this point where Lou knocks on the door.
Right. So before we get too much further.
Yeah, but I was just going to say that, Moe is like really kind of like angry that Lou is at the door. Yeah. That's where we go from there.
So we're going to start out here with why I think this one, and don't get me wrong, I liked this episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is a good one to start with.
Right.
Because it's nothing but questions.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they meet each other? Where did they pick each other up? What's the deal? Who is Lou? Because Lou shows up.
Right.
Just like, hey, here you are. I found you.
Right.
Hey, did you pay her yet?
Was this prearranged? Or was it planned for Lou to stop by? And if so, why is Moe upset about it?
Right. Why is Moe there? And Lou just kind of comes in and takes over.
Right.
He's the one that has sex with Darlene. He's the one that kind of runs everything after this. And Moe is talking to Lou and he says, Lou, please, I'm begging you not to do this. I'm begging you not to do this.
Right. And that's why I think it's kind of a dissociative identity disorder thing here.
That's where I started to think that too. But you start wondering.
Because Moe just sits on the bed all meek.
Right.
While Lou does his thing. Yeah.
Lou comes in and does his thing. And like I said, Charles, if I could live the rest of my life and not see Freddie Jones in his underwear,
right,
I would be happy.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's never going to happen now. So
now granted, at least he kept his underwear on.
Yeah, he kept his underwear on.
He didn't go full frontal, let's just say. So
no, he did not. Freddie Jones is classier than that. So
yeah.
Here's the thing. So you have this situation where, and this is, I don't know if this is pre-Fight Club the novel off the top of my head, but it is definitely pre-Fight Club the movie.
Yeah.
So this idea of watching dissociative personality disorder unfold and not be told about it,
right,
is something that we see in B-movie horror films like The Other or Sisters or something like that. If you're a fan of De Palma.
Or Sybil with Sally Field. No.
Right. No, this is actually prior to Fight Club and novel as well.
Oh,
so,
okay. All right.
Yeah. So we have, like I said, we've got Moe and Lou, and they obviously have a past together. And you have Darlene just sort of, and I've talked about this with my friend Brett, who is a big Chuck Palahniuk fan.
Okay.
And we've talked about the scene where in Fight Club where there's like two of the goons in the back seat and they're watching Tyler and, what's Edward Norton's name in Fight Club?
I'm forgetting. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen Fight Club.
They're having an argument.
Yeah.
They're having an argument in the front seat of the car. And we're watching this, and my friend Brett just says, what are those two guys thinking is going on in the front of this car? Because obviously there's yelling in the front of the car going back and forth, but it's, as we know at the end, it's one guy.
Yes.
So I think that's probably where you have the reefer comes in this episode, because it makes Glenne Headly suggestible and susceptible.
Right.
To just about anything.
Yeah.
So.
Like taking your shoes off and giving a cheer.
Right, taking your shoes off and doing
right before
a cheer,
she passes
but also,
onto the floor and says, "I'm like shit. I'm really stoned right now."
I'm really stoned. Yeah. So, but before that even happens, we start getting glimpses of a sordid past with Lou and Moe and somebody named Felicia.
Right. Or as Lou pronounces it, Felicia.
Felicia.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, was this a girl they fought over? Did they kill her? Did they exactly happen? And you're not really finding it out. And because of that, when you have Moe say to Lou, I beg you don't do this, you start thinking, oh, Darlene is going to die.
Right.
And you start worrying about her safety.
Well, at one point, she tries to leave. And and then Lou says, "No, I'm not ready for you to leave yet," and blocks her from leaving the room. Yeah,
exactly.
She has to call out to the maid or whatever that's in the hallway, going, "Hey, these guys are trying to hurt me."
These guys are trying to hurt me, right? So we've got all this talk about the Felicia story. Yeah. So do you want to tell us the Felicia story, Charles?
Yeah, let's run this down. Okay, so. Apparently, this is kind of like just after Lou, for whatever reason, starts having a seizure and then collapses his head on Darlene's shoulder for just for no reason, and then acting just kind of like, oh hey, that just he's acting like it never happened.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd, but hey, it's Lynch, right? So
it's a very odd character.
Yeah, Lou talks about that he was in Iowa, like 19 or 20 years ago, driving through with his late wife Felicia, and their son Arthur was born in 1950. So this was a year or so before Arthur was born, which means 1949, logically, right?
Right.
He remembers Felicia hated Iowa, cornfields all through Iowa. And in summer it was hot, and they had no air conditioning in the car.
They didn't have an air conditioner in the car. Yeah.
Yeah. So Moe kind of interrupts him at this point. He's like, "God damn you, Lou!" And Darlene starts asking if they're friends at this point. And Lou starts to laugh.
And again,
he gets up from the bed, and Moe tells him he shouldn't be talking about Felicia, and he gets really angry about it. It's not here, not now. It's not right, Lou.
It's not right. And see, that's the thing that's weird about it, because
he gets very hostile with Lou at several occasions in this.
He's very hostile with Lou. And like you said, Charles, like you, I started to think, are these the same people? Is Lou the Moe's Tyler Durden? Right. But again, you have Darlene's interacting with both of them in kind of a direct way. referring to them as you guys and asking questions about the two of them, things like that. But again, like you said, she's really stoned. So
she's really stoned, but also, it could be an unreliable um, um, presentation here because maybe the story is being told through Moe, who,
right,
if he is mentally ill, if he does have this, DID, maybe, this is what we're being presented with isn't real, isn't true.
Exactly. And that could very well be. And like I said, when we get to the end of this episode, I'll talk more about this. So
right.
You have them fighting, and then you have
Moe starts talking about this actress named Martine Mystique.
Martine Mystique, yes.
Yes. Who isn't real, by the way. I looked it up. I just want to make sure. But
but she's the type of actress that makes the guy wish he spoke a little French, I guarantee.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, Lou refers to her as a tall, skinny broad.
Right. Yeah. So Lou and Moe keep having these conversations that are giving you glimpses into their past,
right?
Possibly together.
Yeah.
Possibly as one guy.
Mm-hmm.
They're just sort of talking about the same people and having a discussion. And then, like you said, it comes out that Darlene had been a cheerleader. Well, Darlene also starts talking about her husband.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things that apparently Lou knows her story.
Right. And so that is, again, why I'm wondering, how did they wind up hooking up? Did they talk in the cab? Did he know her? Is he there on business and he knew her from something and looked her up because he knows her husband's dead and that she's a hooker now?
Or did there's a lot of questions. Maybe he targeted her?
Did he target her? Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Lou knows a lot about her husband, so she tells the story of her husband.
Yeah. Well, he actually tells that story a little bit. He's like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, he does.
He's like, he tells Lou, well, she does say one thing. She talks about she could have been a cheerleader at the University of Iowa if she went there, but she got pregnant, and so she stayed home and had the baby. And then it's this point where Lou jumps in and says, "Look, you left the kid with her mother, and so you could follow your boyfriend in New York, and he became an actor, and he was working as a bicycle messenger."
Mm-hmm. And he dumped you.
Right. And then Darlene tells him that, well, my boyfriend didn't want me, so she tried to kill him.
Right.
She tried to stab him 4 times with a kitchen knife.
Right.
But
just a boyfriend. It's not a husband. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm getting this confused.
Yeah. But apparently they had a kid together. And then Lou kind of remarks like, well, you would have killed him, right, if you had a gun, right? You would have shot him. Yeah,
she only had a knife.
Yeah, you would have shot him, right? And Darlene admits that she would have blown his brains out, and then she rolls over as we get more of that. So, making you, giving it definitely that Twin Peaks flavor vibe a little bit here.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
oh, go ahead. You can go ahead and finish.
Well, I was just going to say, at this point, Lou says Felicia didn't know which end of the gun the bullet came out of, and then he gets up and goes to the bathroom, closing the door. So at this point, it's just Moe and Darlene again in the room.
It's just Moe and Darlene. So now we know Felicia's dead,
right?
And we're thinking Lou has killed Felicia.
Yes,
he's killed his wife, and so we're like, who the heck is this guy? What the hell is going on here? And
if this is somebody that Lou or Moe cared about, why is Lou there?
Right. And did Lou, was Moe part of this with Lou? How are they so connected to each other?
Right.
You got Lou killing his wife and Moe being led around by Lou in a Biff and George McFly kind of a way. and you're just wondering what the heck is going on with this.
Right. Well,
And
Darlene assumes that Felicia was Lou's first wife, but
right, but then
Moe shoots her, shuts her down. He's like, look, Felicia was my wife, not Lou. Lou was never married.
Why weren't you listening?
Yeah. Did you hear the story?
Yeah. Did you hear the story? She was my wife in Iowa. And
so it's almost like he's confessing. He's almost confessing, I think, to her at this point.
And he starts to tell her almost exactly the same story that Lou just told.
Yeah.
But with him as the part of the husband.
Right.
And
he says Felicia wouldn't even look twice at Lou. He would, he's never married. Does he look like somebody who would get married?
Right. So what does that say about his psyche?
He's apparently, maybe he's split, like his psyche split when he murdered his wife.
Right.
And he's blaming Lou for everything bad that happened.
Right.
But he's not really admitting it to himself, I don't think. What happened?
No, and it's almost, what's bizarre is that it's almost like he's
angry at Lou, but he doesn't know why he's angry at Lou.
And he's creating a personality for himself that is very meek and the type of person that would just allow bad things to happen to him.
Right.
Who just can't stop them from happening.
Yeah.
And it's his lot in life to have bad things happen to him. I'm not quite sure. And we never particularly find out, do we really find out what happened to their child?
No, we don't.
When he was born in 1950? Yeah, we don't hear anything else about that.
That whole story, and it's kind of implied that the reason he targeted Darlene was that Darlene knew his son. Somehow.
Right.
Maybe
somehow,
they had, but we don't know, what, it's almost like it's undeveloped there.
Right. And it's 1969, so his son would have been 19 at this point. So,
yeah.
Did they go to high school together? Was he in New York when she came to New York? Or
well, it kind of makes sense because if Moe's son was the boyfriend that she stabbed multiple times, so maybe
that too.
So maybe it's revenge for the stabbing.
Is it revenge for the stabbing? Is it? But it's see, I started to think that too, but at the same time,
I mean, that's the only way it kind of makes sense, I think, is that why he's targeting her.
Exactly. So, that he, and
because it connects the whole it connects the whole story about her shooting her boyfriend and how he knew about that.
Right. It connects the whole story. But did Moe follow them? Did he follow her out there to try and find his son to get some sort of sanity back from his son? Like, did his son leave when his father killed his mother?
It's a good question. We don't know.
Right. So there's all kinds of ways the story could go. So I'm thinking the son,
there's a lot of blanks.
Hear anymore.
There's a lot of blanks that need filled in here.
Yeah. We don't hear anything else about the son. We're thinking that the son is probably this boyfriend that got Darlene pregnant.
Right.
And maybe he contacted his dad because he'd gotten someone pregnant. I don't quite know.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that he came to New York to be an actor sort of out of nowhere based on the story that Darlene was telling. So I'm almost thinking, like, did he just go kind of crazy and leave town as soon as they found out that as soon as his mother was murdered?
Maybe.
So, because at this point they still haven't caught Felicia's killer.
Yeah. Yet
they have not caught him. They have not caught her killer yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. Don't worry.
Right. So in this arguing, we've got hotel staff that just sort of, knocks on doors and comes in at like the perfect time.
Well, that and also the hotel staff could care less about what's going on in the room, right?
No, they really don't care. They're just sort of like, do you want your bed turned down?
Yeah, because the maid is like, right after Darlene, cries out from behind the door, hey, these guys are trying to hurt me.
Right. Call the cops. These guys are
Yeah.
trying to hurt me.
She
Yeah.
slips out the door, and then the maid's there. And Lou, I guess, gives her a couple of bucks and says, hey, look, we don't need the room. The room's good right now.
Yeah, the room's fine. We don't
And,
need it turned down.
and the maid's just like standing there like, okay, that's cool. Not even
all right,
like
whatever.
completely ignoring the situation.
Yeah,
right?
Good night. I'll take this tip, and you can turn your own bed down.
Right. No mint? Come on.
Can I watch TV? No. It's probably my favorite of the M&M commercials.
Right. Yeah.
Can I watch TV? No. But so right, she's knocking on the door saying, "Do you want your bed turned down?" Like right when things start to get heated.
Right.
So I'm sort of thinking that kind of saves Darlene's life at this point.
And that might have been intentional, right?
That's where I'm thinking that.
Because what if they're spirits? What if the bellboy and the maid are spirits?
They're some sort of timeless entity, right? They, of course, we don't know that yet, based on just this first episode.
Right.
They're not exactly puppet masters, but maybe
they were observers. At least.
Maybe they're like Dr. Manhattan's maid and butler clones from, not Dr. Manhattan, no, Ozymandias.
Ozymandias, from Watchmen, the HBO miniseries.
The HBO
yes.
His maid and butler clones that he just keeps catapulting.
Yes. Who were amazing, by the way, on that show.
Oh, I finally got to see Tom Myson's penis. It was so wonderful.
It was
After
blue.
all those years of watching Sleepy Hollow.
It was blue, but hey,
Not Tom Myson's.
When he was playing Dr. Manhattan in the play.
No. When they had the
or what
when they were like the bear, they were just like bear clones. Like
yes, yeah, they were just turned into adults, right? Yeah,
right.
Aged
but
up.
Yeah, he wasn't blue yet.
Yeah,
he wasn't quite blue yet. So, anyway, I'll take it. But anyway.
Right. And now I want to talk Watchmen again, even though we talked about that on the Phantom Zone. But yeah,
I wasn't there for that. So anyway, so we've got this maid that comes in and most likely saves Darlene's life. Darlene runs out, so Darlene's gone, and then so we're just sort of left with Lou and Moe just kind of trying to
ruminate, I guess. At this point,
they're just ruminating and like trying to calm each other down almost. Yeah. And just, Lou's trying to tell Moe that it's going to be fine.
Right.
That, that to just.
They start drinking from the same bottle. Like they start bonding almost like over this.
Like they obviously have something in their past together that is binding them.
Right.
And it's not good.
Well, Lou remarks that, life goes on though, if you're lucky. And this triggers a story from Moe that I felt lucky once when he talks about when he was a kid, 11 or 12, delivering Chinese food on a bicycle. Right. And he goes into this whole thing. There's like, I was making a quarter an hour.
And I got a nickel for each order.
A dime on delivery plus tips. And the tips were crucial.
Plus tips,
Yeah. And Lou's like, yeah, I know about crucial. Yep.
So he tells the story about he goes to deliver Chinese food to this woman who is in like a see-through nightgown.
Yes.
And her order is.
And he really describes this because he's like, it was raining and he goes up the stairs and he can feel like the subgum sauce leaking from the bottom of the bag.
Right, the bag's getting wet because it's pissing outside, as he said, that it's raining.
Right.
And so, and like you said, he's like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And
Mrs. Robinson, are you trying to seduce me? That kind of thing.
Not anymore. Anyway, did you ever see that? I want to say it was a Tony Awards. Maybe it was an Academy Awards, but the two of them were presenting something together.
You told me this.
And he said that to her, and Bancroft looks up and down and just says, not anymore. It's like, that's why she's one of my favorite people that has ever walked on the face of this planet. Anyway.
Right.
So because he's like 12 or 11, like the fact that she's half naked is like kind of interesting, but he doesn't quite know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And she asks for how much it is, and he says it's $5, and she gives him a 20.
Yeah.
And says, and he keeps thinking to himself, if I could just have like 3 deliveries like this, everything will be fine.
Well, before that, she, as he's going out the door, she tells him to keep it, and she takes his hand and puts it on her breast. So that's why he's saying, like if I could just have 2 of those a day.
This would be great.
It sure beat working. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
But I like the fact he refers to her like she had a big husky voice like Lauren Bacall or Tallulah Bankhead.
She
it's
she looked like Tallulah Bankhead, sounded like Lauren Bacall.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I said except for her hair, which is more like Lauren Bacall's. But it's more old Hollywood from Lynch in this one.
Mm-hmm. One of these, and I forget which one it is, somebody says all things being equal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, when I heard that line...
I'd rather be in Philadelphia. Yeah, exactly.
I just blurted it out. I just said it. I just said it out loud. So he tells his Chinese food story. Everything's possibly going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a knock.
Right. And very loud knocking. It's all like...
Very loud knock at the door. It's sort of like, what?
Yeah.
And it's police.
Right. It's the Popo.
It's the Popo. And...
she's at the cops.
Yeah. They're looking for Lou.
Right.
And...
yeah, they're looking for, Lou Holchak. And, the detective comes in asking Moe if he's Lou. And Moe's like, no, Lou's not here. And then another detective, and this is something we forgot to mention, is while Moe and Lou were, sharing the bottle and talking, and Moe is doing the story about delivering the Chinese food, there's a very subtle moment where Lou takes his wallet and puts it in Moe's coat pocket.
Puts it in Moe's coat pocket, yeah.
So by now, another detective takes Moe's coat, goes through it, and finds the wallet inside. And it has Louis Holchak's wallet, driver's license, credit cards, and Social Security cards. And oh, by the way, the picture on the driver's license is Moe.
Is Moe, right. That's the thing.
And that's the clincher, right? That they're the same person.
That's what does it. Yeah, that's what makes you think this is what's happening.
Right.
And because you don't have Moe protesting, saying, that's not my driver's license, that's not me. He's just sort of like...
well, he does say... he does say, he gets arrested for the murder of Felicia Boca, his wife. And the detective asks him, well, do you understand your rights? And Moe insists over and over, no. At first he says yes, and then he changes it. He's like, no, I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. So it's like the Moe persona had no memory of the murder.
Right.
It was all Lou.
Because Lou was...
yeah, Lou was the murderer. Lou did it.
Exactly.
But it turns out they're the same person.
Right. So Moe, you're thinking all this time that, like, the Lou is the Tyler Durden.
Right.
But no, Moe is the Tyler Durden. Moe is the fake one. Moe is the fake persona.
Right.
Lou is the actual guy.
Right.
And
well,
at least that's
Lou is the true identity, I should say.
Lou is true. Yeah, he is the Superman.
He looks physically like Moe, but Lou is the real person.
Right. Like Lou is the Superman, and Moe is the Clark.
Right. Exactly. If they were like horrible people that murder their wife, yes. Yeah.
Right.
If they murdered Lois Lane, yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I can't remember Edward Norton's name is because he doesn't really have one in Fight Club.
Okay,
I was trying to look. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't really have one. So, you're like, okay, what the hell just happened? You're watching the end of this episode and you're thinking, what the hell just happened? So, like I said, I like this episode. This is a good episode.
Yeah.
I like how it's done. It's got good people in it. But this is 1993. David Lynch has a reputation at this point.
Yeah, because this is after Twin Peaks. Yes.
This is after Twin Peaks. This is after Fire Walk with Me.
And after On the Air. Yeah.
After On the Air. We've got, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, where, this is, we know that David Lynch and Barry Gifford are a great match.
Right.
So, but David Lynch at the time, I think David Lynch was in the ether, but at the same time, from what I remember, I don't think people had a lot of tolerance for him. If you weren't a fan, you weren't like interested in becoming a fan.
Right.
Because all of those people at your school or in your office who like Twin Peaks are the weirdos. And here's another weirdo show. And here's this weirdo show episode where I don't know what the hell's going on, and it's weird for weird's sake. And what is this whole thing about hotels and Millennium? And
yeah, it kind of feels like Twin Peaks was more, they viewed Twin Peaks as a fad, and David Lynch was a fad, And that fad
David
is over when the
yeah.
show ended.
Even though David Lynch has been Oscar nominated since like his first movie.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks made him an overnight success that took 20 years.
Right. But I'm talking about the entertainment industry, how they viewed him at this point.
The entertainment industry, and I think
like
the
that
audience,
was nice. It was cool, but it's over.
Yeah.
And let's get back to standard storytelling.
Right, because for a while, we've talked a million times about how Twin Peaks changed the face of television.
Yes.
And after Twin Peaks came on the air, things got quirky. Things got very quirky. We had
Northern Exposure.
Yep. Erie, Indiana.
Right.
American Gothic. We had all that kind of thing. And then we had the X-Files, where I think we finally settled.
Yeah.
On where people wanted, like, who was going to watch the quirky and how it was going to work. So David Lynch in 40 minutes, having nothing but questions and absolutely no possibility of resolution.
Right.
I think might not have been our best way to start this. I'm also not sure if airing all of these episodes at the exact same time.
Right. Back to back
was
to back.
The best
idea. Right.
Because, other things came out around this time, like Four Rooms.
Yeah.
Where in a hotel, crazy stuff happened, blah, blah, blah. But also bad reviews. And HBO was thinking about marketing this as the same way they had marketed Tales from the Crypt.
Right.
Which was an excellent show.
Yeah, there's some things I had for trivia that I wanted to run. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think having this one first and then having it be all together.
Right.
And going from making no sense to jumping ahead in time, like 22 years.
Right.
23 years. And then jumping backwards in time again, I think was a little too much for everybody at once. Like if you'd had this one episode.
Yeah.
First, because the second episode is a dark comedy.
Right.
And the third episode is just really sweet. It's dark, but it's very sweet.
Yeah.
So I think if you had them on different nights, it would have been like, okay, this is going to be
space it out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. To space it out. But you had this weird episode that's nothing but questions and gives you no answers. And then you go into something completely unrelated and something completely unrelated. I think it was just too much for everybody at once, for the average viewer. Like the David Lynch viewer is going to love this no matter what.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, it's David Lynch. It's Barry Gifford. It's Monty Montgomery. It's what we want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had never seen these before. So this was my first time watching these, and I'm like, because hey, I'm a David Lynch fan. I was dialed in. I got it. I appreciated it.
Right, or you just know that you are going to be left with questions.
Right, and I don't have a problem with that because
it.
I'm familiar enough with David Lynch that that's the expectations I have going in.
Right, but imagine like I'm not trying to insult anybody, but imagine like the 30-something audience trying to watch this show.
Right.
Or
the audience that's used to typical network fare.
Right. Linear network fare.
Right.
And that, that's more of it, because.
Again, that's why I think they saw Lynch's, his non-linear storytelling as a fad.
Because the thing is around 1993, right, around 1993, we were starting to have like the anthology show renaissance, but it never particularly lasted. Like Tales from the Crypt lasted the longest, and it was probably the most well done.
Well, anthology series. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You had a lot of like horror / fantasy / supernatural anthology shows.
Yeah.
Even Nightmare Cafe was kind of an anthology show because you had the same core characters, but every week it was a new story. It was an anthology show,
right,
the same way Fantasy Island was an anthology show. Fantasy Island was never a continuing storyline. It was the island. You had the people who worked on the island and the people who came to the island, and the story was the people who came to the island. Same thing. People who came in the cafe.
Right.
That's their story. The hotel room. It's who comes to the hotel. So you had shows like Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, Monsters, Friday the 13th, the series, Freddy's Nightmares,
right,
Amazing Stories, the reboot of The Twilight Zone, things like that. But I don't know anybody older than us that watched those shows. Those were sort of a younger audience until Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt skewed a little bit older, I think. And I think this was...
It just happened to click with the audience, because generally anthology shows are harder to pitch or harder to sell because you don't have the same characters around, so it's harder for the audience to follow week to week to week. You know, they have to learn a whole new storyline all over again each week.
Even though you have things like Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Thriller, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, classic television was full of this.
Yeah.
Night Gallery.
Right. But I think audience were more receptive back then in the 50s, in the 60s, than they are, because you saw, like, with the recent Twilight Zone reboot on CBS All Access, that failed to connect with people.
And it's a shame too, because it was so good.
Right.
But Rod Serling will tell you this: it was too long.
Yeah.
They were hour-long episodes. Hour-long episodes are too long.
Right.
Twilight Zone. Rod Serling.
They've tried to bring the Twilight Zone back, various decades. Like there's the 80s version, 90s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Forrest Whitaker one,
Right.
So Rod Serling himself said he tried to do an hour-long Twilight Zone, and they were too long.
Yeah.
And there are some fantastic episodes of the new Twilight Zone. If you have Paramount Plus, I highly recommend it, because it's really, really wonderful. Jordan Peele, he's a master of comedy and he's a master of horror. Who knew? Mm-hmm. But I don't quite know why we've lost that. I don't know why as an audience we've lost that, because the Twilight Zone is still held in such high regard as one of the classics of the golden age of television.
Right.
But it's not, like I said, that formula doesn't work. When you have that type of a formula, even if you have a core cast, even like Friday the 13th, the series, where, you've got the three people who work at the store trying to find the objects. The story is about the object. It's not about those people. And I think this one was just a little too weird. It was a little too weird and too much at once.
Yeah.
And it was a good length, and it was a perfect type of thing for this. But this one was just too many questions.
Too many questions.
Too many questions. Too many like who, why, where, what. And I have seen this happen before with people. They just get pissed off with David Lynch. Mm-hmm. Pissed off that David Lynch is just weird for the sake of being weird. And they kind of just sort of, that guy's just screwed up. David Lynch is just so weird. He must be high all the time. I mean, all these things are things that I've heard.
Yeah. All the preconceptions that they have. Right.
Right. David Lynch is not a strange person. He likes to have coffee at a diner.
Right.
He likes to paint. He's a dad. I mean, he's just a normal dude that when it comes to storytelling, he's not particularly linear. And I think when you're trying to sell that to people, you don't want if we had seen 3 episodes of Twin Peaks that didn't relate to each other in the same night, premiere it, and it hadn't come out, it hadn't just hit the ground running with Ronette coming across the train tracks.
Right.
And Laura being in the plastic on the beach, that's the first thing you see is a dead body and then an almost dead body. I mean, that really got people sitting up and noticing, but you've got...
It was a very strong hook that drew you in.
Very strong.
You with Laura, you said, okay, this pretty girl, she's dead, and she's wrapped in plastic, left and lying on a beach. And you're like, how did she get here? What happened? You're just drawn right in.
And then you have a pretty girl walking in her underwear across train tracks with ropes on her wrists going,
right.
Oh my God, what the hell's going on in this town?
Yeah, exactly.
So but you don't get time to get hooked with these guys to care about them. And these are terrible people.
Yeah.
I love Harry Dean Stanton, but I'm sure if I were a hooker and I saw him coming my way, I'd be like, I am in for a night of sob stories.
Right. Well, he does have this very sad sack look, especially in this episode.
He has a real sad sack look. That's the thing. And as we find out in this episode, he killed his wife. He is a terrible person.
He is, yeah. And so much so that, he doesn't even remember doing it because he he shifted all that to a different persona.
He shifted all that to Freddie Jones.
Yeah.
And you see Glenne Headly, who is a friggin' train wreck, you know?
Right.
And it's like, there comes a point where sometimes it's really fun to remember the cheers you did when you were in high school, and sometimes it's just sad.
Well, here it's sad, yeah.
This was one of those times when it was sad.
Yeah.
like, oh, baby, this is the last good thing that ever happened to you, isn't it? Like, it's just depressing.
She totally peaked in high school, and then that was it.
It's not even that. It's not even peaked in high school. It's like, I was a cheerleader, then I got pregnant, then I followed this guy, then he dumped me, and then I tried to stab him.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, being a cheerleader was the last time her life was good.
Right.
So it's depressing to sort of see, like, oh boy, you haven't had any happiness since this last time you did this cheer. Yeah. Like, you're sad for her. And so I think this is a hard one to hook people with. And then you start in with really vapid women from 1992 in a dark comedy, which is we'll talk about next time.
Right.
I think if I'd had a week between those two, I could ruminate on it a little bit and let it marinate in my brain and think about what I'm watching and hear other people's opinions and then think, okay. And again, like I said, this gets really bad. It gets some pretty scathing reviews that I don't necessarily think are warranted.
Right.
Because I think they're trying to compare it to a show that it's apples and oranges, but it's still fruit.
Yeah.
But calling this a Twilight Zone is apples and oranges. This is a Fantasy Island or a Nightmare Cafe.
Right. So one of the things that the trivia that I was doing research on for this, and there's not much, but the reason they decided to air these episodes together, essentially like turning into like a feature-length pilot, they thought that, and this is HBO here, they thought that if it was well received, they could do a series of episodes following the same standalone half-hour format, and they could make those later. So essentially they thought, well, we'll just edit this to like a standard like TV pilot length, an hour and a half for back then. You know, because remember, the original Twin Peaks pilot was an hour and a half without commercials.
Right. That's right.
So that's, I think, what they were thinking. But because, you know, this got lambasted by the critics, like you said, they decided, okay, we're not going to go ahead with this. I think we're
not going to do anything.
Like, we'll try it out, but, you know, we'll wait and see what the reaction is before we decide we're going to do more.
Yeah. Or this is something, you could think of this as something like a trilogy of terror.
Right.
Where you have these three scary stories that don't really relate to each other.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that the same actress is in all three of them. And this is the same way, except the actress in this situation is the room itself.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think HBO knew how to package this for what it was.
No.
And when you're talking David Lynch, you've got to package it right because he's a hard sell, I think, to a lot of people.
Right.
He's got a reputation as being a weirdo. He's got a reputation as being weird for the sake of being weird. He has a reputation for being nonlinear, which he is, even though, as we've seen before, David Lynch can do freaking anything.
Yeah.
He can have Fire Walk with Me and The Straight Story, and they're both fantastic. Because David Lynch can tell a story. But when David Lynch tells his own story, sometimes it's not linear. Right. And sometimes it's just visuals.
Interpretational.
Ideas, it's feelings, it's atmosphere.
Yes.
It's not point A to point B.
It's not a narrative. Yeah, it's not a standard narrative.
Yeah, it's not point A to point B and then on the weekend you get to point C. It's not that kind of a thing.
No.
So when you throw this all in one package and you say, here you go, people, what do you think of David Lynch's new anthology horror series?
Right.
And then you have the New York Times saying, this is David Lynch trying to do the Twilight Zone and he fails. It's like, that's because he's not trying to do the Twilight Zone.
Right. It was completely misinterpreted. So
I feel like it was definitely misinterpreted. Yeah.
Yeah. So you brought up Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
According to Barry Gifford, when I was doing my research, HBO was trying to emulate that success of their anthology series, Tales from the Crypt. But apparently they
ran like 6 seasons or something, maybe even 10 seasons, something. It ran for a long time.
Yeah, but according to him, they quote, they wanted sexier or comedic pieces, not serious sex and not satire exactly. but something else. So essentially, yeah, they kind of wanted like the sexy comedic version of Tales from the Crypt.
Well,
and they knew that Lynch, and they probably figured, well, Lynch can do comedy and sex because he did that on Twin Peaks, right?
Right, he did, but and Tales from the Crypt ran for 7 seasons. It ran for a long time.
Right. And I'm just trying to visualize what the network executives were thinking here.
Well, and Tales from the Crypt was already doing that.
Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt was horror and sexy and funny. So, and satire.
Well, maybe they wanted that without the horror. Like, hey, let's do something for the people that don't like horror.
So you get David Lynch?
I know. I don't know. I'm just saying. You know.
I mean, David Lynch. I don't want to say David Lynch's movies are horror movies, but his movies can be horrifying.
Right. But maybe they figured they were fixated on the anthology part, perhaps.
Maybe. And well, like I said, you know, we'll talk more about this when we get to episode 3, because episode 3 is very heartwarming. It's dark, but it's very sweet. It's a very sweet episode. Right. It's also written by Barry Gifford. We've got 2 things written by Barry Gifford.
Directed by David Lynch. Again, directed by David Lynch, right?
You got Barry Gifford, who, Wild at Heart is not an easy story.
No, it's not.
Know?
It's not.
These are not good people. These are not
likable
people.
Like,
sure if you should be rooting for them or not. I mean, you're rooting for Lula. At the very least, you're rooting for Lula.
Right.
You're rooting for Sailor? I don't always know if you are, you know? And so I think that if what they're trying to do is not have, also, if you don't want satire or irony or anything like that, why are you getting Jay McInerney? Mm-hmm. I mean, Jay McInerney is just nothing but, he's the perfect, jaded yuppie type of writer. You know, he's part of that 80s crowd of yuppie authors, along with Bret Easton Ellis and Tammy Janowitz, that group of people where you have these, Jay McInerney, if you're not familiar with him, is who wrote Bright Lights Big City. He wrote the novel Bright Lights Big City.
Okay.
Which is very similar to Bret Easton Ellis's novel Less Than Zero. It's just about a bunch of really entitled white kids who screw their lives over with cocaine.
Right.
So, you know, you had that was a thing in the 80s, was this sort of, I have all of the sort of
disillusioned youth.
Right. It was the young boomers. Right. They were like I said, the not necessarily the 30-something audience, but the 30-something aged people who were probably born in like 1960 and, you know,
right before my generation, our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Born between 1960 and 1965, who were in college in the, you know, early to mid 80s.
Yeah. The gap between the baby boomers and Gen X, essentially.
To the people who became Charlie Sheen in Wall Street. They were every opportunity financially, with education, and they just
greed is good. Greed is good.
Greed works, and they pissed it away with cocaine. Yeah. I mean, that's what this genre of writing was all about. Yeah. So he's kind of a scathing commentary on some things. I personally love the story Bright Lights Big City because you feel so bad for somebody you really can't stand. Because, you know, Charles, we've talked about this before, and you know this about me, that I'm a sucker for addicts.
Right.
And the Jamie character in Bright Lights Big City is an addict, and he keeps ducking phone calls from his family, from his brother specifically, only to find out that the reason his brother has been calling him is to tell him their mother died, and he's been trying to call him for a year. His mother died a year ago, and he doesn't know.
Oh, jeez.
Because he's popped up on cocaine. So you kind of like, and he's got this friend named Tad, okay, who is played by Kiefer Sutherland. Imagine Kiefer Sutherland,
is so 80s, by the way,
as your devil on your shoulder cocaine buddy.
Okay, right.
How freaking perfect is it?
Yeah.
And you just hate both of these guys, but you feel so bad for the Jamie character because his mother dies of cancer and is played by Diane Wiest. I mean,
oh, jeez.
is there anything sweeter that you want to hug more than a cancer-riddled Diane Wiest? I mean,
right.
So, so what's interesting about our second episode, and we'll talk about it later, is Jay McInerney's sort of take on the how upwardly mobile is going in the 90s. And, this is it's a dark comedy. So that's kind of what's going on in this one. And to throw that together with this 1960s dissociative personality murder mystery, and then to tack on this really sweet Dust Bowl tragic love story that we have for episode 3.
Yeah.
They're just too different. I mean, it's just
and airing them back to back to back was just too overwhelming for the viewer, for most viewers.
Right. And like you said at the beginning, where you have David Lynch with his monologue about, the space that hotels take up, and we've been passed through the spaces forever.
Yeah.
And I started to tell you that sort of reminded me of the liner notes of Moby's Hotel album.
Right. Yes.
Where he talks, and I don't particularly like Moby all that much. Not for any reason.
I had a Moby phase that I went through. I got the Play album, and then the next 3 albums, including Hotel.
Right.
And then I kind of checked out after that.
For me, it has nothing to do with Moby himself, or just the music I got real sick of.
Right.
So I never felt the need to own any of the. I mean, of course, the video for "We Are All Made of Stars" is hilarious, but for the album Hotel, he talks about how he thinks hotels are fascinating, that they're so private, but they're also so monitored.
Mm-hmm.
There's always staff around. They're alive 24 hours a day, and what's going on behind each door is very private, but it's full of people, even though you feel like you're alone when you're in a hotel room. So
right.
What David Lynch was talking about sort of reminded me of those liner notes, but that bit is only at the very beginning. There's no Rod Serling or Crypt Keeper parts.
Right. To come in and give you the moral of the story, or to wrap up the story,
or to tell you that, hey, here's another story.
Yeah, right.
We've changed, hey, it is now 1992, or let's go back to 1936, or anything like that. And
next time in room 603.
Yeah, next time, let's see what happens in room 603 next time when we return to the hotel room. You don't have anything like that. No. And you don't have anything where you have our standard cast members interacting with each other. The maid and the bellhop don't even interact with each other all that much. And
there's very little to connect to here.
Right. So there's not much to connect them. They're not there. There's nothing that is letting you believe that they might be the moral compass of this hotel, even though you sort of think they are, because like I said, they kind of knock on the door at the right times.
Right.
But at the end of the episode, the credits are a white screen over their silhouettes, the maid and the bellhop. So you get the feeling that maybe if this show had
continued,
or they would have played into these stories a little more.
Right.
So I just don't think, like I said with ABC, not knowing what to do with a comedy by David Lynch, I don't think HBO packaged this properly.
No, I agree. I tend to agree, obviously, and it doesn't help that they had the most 90s credits ever with this. With the font that it's kind of overlaid, but the resolution is so poor because this is 90s credits that
right, and
it doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, it doesn't have a
it was shot on videotape, essentially.
Shot on videotape, and Charles, when I saw this, like I said, this was one of those that I checked out of Blockbuster when I worked there in 1995.
Right.
And meant to copy it, but either didn't have blank tape or my second VCR was broken or something, and I just never got around to it. I never got around to copying it, so I only ever watched these once or twice.
Yeah.
25 years ago and completely forgot about what most of them were.
So here's my question then, because it's something I kind of wanted to know. So did you remember anything at all as you watched this again here in 2021? Or was it completely fresh to
Yes.
you from like I completely forgot about it. It's almost like I'm watching it for the first time.
I remembered one thing, and we'll talk about it next time.
Oh, okay. Good tease.
That's it.
Good tease.
Yeah, I remember one thing.
Yeah.
But no, I kind of remembered who was in it.
Right.
But there was somebody I did not remember being in it, and we will talk about that next time as well.
Oh, another hook. Good. You're good. Good. Keep those listeners coming back for more. See,
yeah, that's what I do.
So
see,
that's what a hotel room is missing. You know, gotta give them that hook to come back.
Next week.
Right.
It needs to let you know this is the next week. It doesn't need to let you sit down for 2 hours and watch a bunch of stuff that is just weird as hell.
Right.
That you don't have a chance to ruminate on. That's what you need with David Lynch is you need that week, man. You need that week.
You need the ability to process for a while.
Yeah. You need that week between episodes so you can say, what the hell just happened? What did I see? Talk to your friends about it and say,
did you see
what was
this?
I looking at?
Yeah.
Did you notice that this happened? Did you see blah, blah, blah? And then by the time you just are ready to explode from, oh my God, this was then another episode's on.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if as hard as it was to wait a week between episodes of The Return.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I recommend binging a lot of Twin Peaks. Well, I'd say maybe do 2 episodes at a time.
Well, I'd say if you've watched it several times.
Oh yeah, your first go around. Yeah,
no,
I don't know. I would
not
say
like going into it cold.
2 episodes maximum.
Yeah. Well, we watched, together when you invited us, Lori and me, over to watch the first 2 episodes of Twin Peaks: The Return.
Right.
And the way they ended it, obviously with a chromatic singing Shadow,
mm-hmm.
I thought that was perfect to have those 2 episodes back to back.
Right.
But I was glad, though, that the later episodes were only 1 episode
mm-hmm.
to give you more room to process. I think, that first one almost had to be 2 hours because the first episode of that.
Because, goddamn it, we've been waiting 25 years.
Exactly. It's like you felt like we deserved it. And that first episode really didn't give you a whole lot. There's so many questions after that.
It was slow and atmospheric.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it worked better with 2 episodes that premiere night.
I think David Lynch works better when you have some time to ruminate on him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And HBO didn't give you that at all here.
Nope.
So.
All right. So what's your rating for this first episode? This should be interesting.
This one, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Because I feel like this was a story that deserved more attention. Okay. I wanted more from this story. I wanted to hear more about how Lou and Moe became Lou and Moe.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to know more about the murder of Felicia.
More about the murder, and are they is like you said, did they pick up Darlene because
did they target her?
Tried to stab their
yeah.
Is she was it their son that she tried to stab?
Yeah.
Or do they pick up troubled hookers all the time, and are they leaving a trail of bodies?
There's more. This could have been a whole thing. Like if they had just stayed with the story.
Yeah. I would have liked to have seen this character more examined.
Right.
So I would have liked something a little more than 40 minutes with it, but I liked what I got. So I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10 chimney glasses.
There you go.
What about you?
I was a little more generous.
Okay.
I kind of dug it. I mean, I really enjoyed Harry Dean Stanton and Freddie Jones and
they're very good.
And just the surreal nature of Glenne Headly doing a cheer while stoned as a hooker.
That was wonderful. Yeah,
right.
She killed it in this episode.
So I kind of enjoyed this one. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you. I gave it 8 out of 10 rain-soaked bags of Chinese food.
That's a good one. Yeah, just fair warning, everybody. If you watch Hotel Room and you watch them all at once, you are going to want Chinese food. Just so you know.
And then you're going to want Chinese food all over again.
Yeah, you are.
Because it's Chinese food, right?
For more reasons than that.
There's that. So, Ghostwood Mail, we didn't get any Ghostwood Mail, but this was, it's understandable because we're talking really obscure stuff lately.
We are talking really obscure stuff. Now, Charles, we should probably say that this is in fact on YouTube.
Yes. So if you want to check it out, you can find all 3 episodes back to back.
If you just put in David Lynch Hotel Room, you'll get a couple of listings. One of them says, this I think was ripped from a VHS tape.
Right.
There's another one that was ripped from a Japanese Laserdisc, and the description says it has laser rot, but the laser rot really isn't that bad. So I wouldn't let that put you off, because the laser rot is just a little bit in the really dark spots.
Right. And we were talking about this before we started recording, that the resolution on these is pretty poor.
It's pretty poor. Yeah. So watch it on an iPad at maximum.
Yeah. The DVD version is 240p, and the Laserdisc version is uploaded at 480p.
Okay.
So it's a little bit better if you watch the Japanese Laserdisc version. Although keep in mind, the Japanese Laserdisc version does have Japanese subtitles at the bottom of the screen.
But I mean,
so if you're cool with that,
you're not.
The audio is in English, so that doesn't, you can still understand what's going on if you're an, English speaking person. But
exactly.
But just keep in mind that it's higher resolution, but it does have those subtitles at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I thought I'd give fair warning on that. Now,
and like I said, the laser rot is nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
and
it's negligible at best.
It's negligible at best. If you do not know what laser rot is.
Yeah, why don't you explain that for the young?
I will tell you what laser rot is.
Yeah.
Laser rot was a phenomena that we saw with laser discs, because laser discs were double-sided.
Right.
But they were one side glued to another one-sided disc.
Right.
So you would have to pick them up and flip them over, or you could get automatic flipping machines.
Yeah.
The laser would flip.
So you kind of picture, okay, for the younger people, younger than us, obviously. Imagine like a DVD, but it was the size of a vinyl record.
It was 12 inches.
Yeah, 12 inches, and it was double-sided, so you had to flip it over like a vinyl record.
Right, but it wasn't like a DVD where there's like one piece of plastic.
Yeah.
And, one side is widescreen and one side is full screen, or one side is the movie and one side is the special features. These were one-sided pieces of disc that got glued together. Sometimes they weren't. Sometimes it was just one disc. And if you put it in on the wrong side, it would be a little picture of a turtle saying, "Flip me over."
That's
It was
funny.
a little animated turtle on his back saying, "Flip me over."
See, I never had a Laserdisc player, so I missed out on that.
So when you had the two discs that were glued together to make a double-sided disc,
right,
what happened was they were glued together. And as time went on, that glue started to disintegrate.
Right.
And that glue's disintegration would then sort of seep into the picture. So if you see a laser disc that has all kinds of blotches all over it all the time,
right,
that's what's referred to as laser rot. That's the glue rotting, seeping into your picture.
See, I learned something today, everybody.
Yeah, there you go. So
the more you know.
I watched a little bit of this one, and I couldn't really see it until I watched the third part of this, where it's called blackout. So it's very dark.
Right.
And you can see little blips of it during the.
It's more noticeable in the.
Yeah, but it's negligible. I wouldn't let it deter you.
No, not at all. And if anything else, like I said, it's better resolution than the DVD version that's uploaded.
That's you mean the VHS version?
Oh, the VHS version. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting.
This was never on DVD.
No.
It should be. I would love to see this remastered with maybe some Barry Gifford commentary.
Or, hey, HBO Max, we know you're out there.
HBO Max, come on, man.
You're looking for content. Well, how about uploading that? Because
Disney just uploaded the Ewok Adventures, okay? I think you can put Hotel Room.
They just finally uploaded the Boba Fett animated short from the Star Wars Christmas special.
Because he just didn't smell right, Charles. If you've seen the holidays special, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
So yeah, so that is this week's lesson in obsolete technology.
Right.
Trivia.
We apparently, we're really good at that. We talk about that. If we're we talk about mixtapes, we talk about laser discs. So
right.
Probably 8-tracks next, right?
See, that was something I never really did.
I did. My parents got it. Like they got me an 8-track player, so I did that for a little bit. But then I switched over to audio cassettes after that.
See, I got audio cassettes pretty early.
CDs.
Like I had one of those like carry along record players that you could play 45s on, and they had really crappy sound.
See, all I had to do was mention 8-tracks, and here we are.
And and then but see, I was about 6 or 7 when I got my first cassette player.
Right.
So I kind of missed out on the whole 8-track thing.
Yeah.
And my parents never had if they had a car that had an 8-track player in it, I was unaware of that car.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my mom had in her Cadillac. She had an 8-track player. So back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your mom had a Cadillac with an 8-track player in the 70s?
Right. Yeah.
That
late 70s. Yeah.
You guys are selling a lot of bacon and eggs. That is styling.
That's right.
Nice.
But picture this really tiny woman like behind this huge Cadillac. So it's like all you see
it's in
are
my head,
knuckles.
Right, Charles?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yep. The old woman that's meandering along, and Ferris's father is stuck behind her. Yeah. Move over.
That's all I'm seeing.
Yes.
That's all I'm seeing right now.
Dinner's ready.
No. No, don't get up.
Hi, Ferris Bueller.
Hi, how you doing, Ferris Bueller?
So we didn't get mail, but I did want to mention we did get mail, but not about the episodes that we're discussing directly. We did get mail from a guy named TJ, so I did want to mention him because since we last recorded, he actually offered to hook us up with the on-the-air video files, not knowing that Magical Fairies we've already received such bounty.
Magical Korean Laserdisc Fairies?
Yeah, exactly.
Have already blessed us.
But I did want to give a shout out to TJ for at least offering to hook us
TJ, that's
up.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because he's like, hey guys, I have like the whole run of On the Air in file form. If you really wanted them that bad, you can mail me a flash drive, and I could put it on there and mail it back to you. So it's very nice of him to offer to hook us up. So thank you, TJ. That is
very nice. Yes.
Yeah. And then appreciate the love and trying to hook us up, but we're cool. We're good now.
Yeah.
I mean, we are waiting for hotel room. That would be nice, but
yeah, if you get a decent hotel room,
right,
that'd be nice.
Yeah, then we'll talk. Maybe
all we have
allegedly.
Is
we'll allegedly talk. Let's just put it that way.
We'll allegedly have.
Hypothetically, we'll talk.
Here's the thing, Charles. I don't see anything wrong with TJ archiving a video cassette of his.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Especially if said, HBO refuses to upload it themselves, right?
And we are not selling it for profit, nor are we screening it for profit.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I don't see. This is just like me loaning you.
For pure conversational purposes, that's all.
Yeah. This would be like me loaning you a Blu-ray, Charles.
Yeah. But I did think it was cool of TJ to offer at least. So thanks, TJ.
That is super cool of TJ. Thank you very much.
All right. So anybody else that, like I said, maybe knows where a hotel room could be procured somehow, mysteriously, allegedly, hypothetically, you can write to us at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com. It's ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com. Or you find us on Twitter at ghostwoodcast on Twitter, or Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks Podcast on Facebook. Xan, what are you up to? I know that DJ Nick has been using a lot of your time these days, recording Gold Standard Podcast episodes, but what else are you up to?
Not a lot, really. I'm going through some things in my life.
Right.
But I am on Twitter and Instagram as Udenax19. I'm not posting very much. I'm on Facebook as Xan Sprouse. I'm not posting very much.
Right.
And I am, like you said, discussing Oscar-winning Best Picture movies with our friends DJ Nick and Rachel Friend on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where our most recent episode, we discuss all about Eve and this year's Oscars.
There you go.
And then sometimes I get drunk and talk about not so Oscar-winning movies with you, Charles, on Drunk Cinema.
Well, you mean like Kung Pao Enter the Fist that we just talked about, where... Yeah, that's not exactly Oscar contender, but it was fun to talk about. I had a lot of fun talking about that episode with you.
An Oscar-winning writer, though.
This is true. This is true. Yep.
Yeah, Steve Odekirk has an Oscar.
Yep. So, which is apparently more than David Lynch has, apart from his honorary Oscar, I guess.
I was going to say, not true. David Lynch has an honorary Oscar.
He has an honorary Oscar, but not a proper Oscar, is my point.
He really should have damn it, Elephant Man should have won.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
A couple of years, I'll be talking about that with DJ Nick and Rachel.
Well, that's probably why they gave him the Special Achievement Oscar, a.k.a. the Apology Oscar.
AKA the we made a mistake by not giving this to you for Blue Velvet Oscar.
We totally effed up Oscar. Yeah, exactly.
We screwed up on this one. Yeah, you are a rad ass director, and we should have been giving you Oscar. Fine.
Well, as for me, you can find me on Twitter at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and the blog of the Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee and hot.
Damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here in Ghostwood. So Twin Peaks, David Lynch stuff, news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media Group, including, that Drunk Cinema that I do with Xan, our little side gig where we just finished.
I have been so behind on trying to even be good on social media. I've had life going on. So
you've got some important things going on right now.
I got some.
You got to worry about you more than social media. But yeah, so we just finished talking, like I said, Kung Pao Enter the Fist, and then coming up in our next Drug Cinema episode, we're going to be discussing, as it turns out, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Bum, 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 bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Little movie, maybe you heard of it, big in the 80s. Some guy named Harrison Ford starring with Karen Allen, and just a kind of an iconic movie that launched one of the greatest adventure characters ever made on film. That kind of thing. Directed by Spielberg, written by George Lucas. No big deal, right?
Lawrence Kasdan, no big deal.
Yeah, Lawrence Kasdan. Yeah, no big deal, right?
Yeah, there's just a little movie from 1981 you might have heard of. Maybe not.
Maybe. But so we're going to be talking about that one. I'm really looking forward to it because Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think, is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Raiders is really good.
Yeah.
Raiders is a really good movie.
I never get tired of watching it, no matter, because obviously, like Paramount Network now. It used to be Spike, and then they changed, I think, the Paramount Network or whatever. They air that thing constantly, and I'm always watching it whenever it's on.
You're at least watching the melting scene at the end.
Well,
right?
yeah, right?
You gotta watch Nazis melt. I mean, that's never not topical.
Melting Nazis never gets old. I'm just saying.
Old.
Never gets old. And I'm sure DJ Nick would back me up on this totally. Never gets old.
Oh, I think any decent human would back you up on this.
Yeah.
Not just DJ Nick because, he lives in a formerly fascist country, but
Nazis. I hate these guys. Oh wait, that's a different Jones movie. But yeah, so that's what we're talking next on Drunk Cinema. And then Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where normally it would be Jesse Jackson, my partner in time, and me. But sadly, Jesse's he's having some serious health problems of his own.
Jesse's having some things.
Yeah,
Jesse's got some things.
He's got a big surgery coming up, and so if you know Jesse, if you listen to him on Next Stop Everywhere, Set Lusting Bruce, or wherever, or if you've heard him when he was on the Phantom Zone with Nick and I, you know that he's a very special person.
He's a great guy.
So I would personally take it as a personal favor that if you kept him in your thoughts, give him all the positive vibes that you can.
Yeah, maybe shoot him a little message saying, hey, we're thinking of you.
Exactly.
Which I still need to do. I haven't done that yet.
Well, that's why I suggested to everybody. I said, hey, look, it doesn't have to be just me messaging him. It's open. Anybody can do it. So that's why I encourage everybody,
Right.
reach out and just let him know that
he only has to tell you once about what the deal is.
Right, I know.
So.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I don't mind sharing everybody, like that way he doesn't have to explain himself multiple times. I can share it with everybody.
Exactly.
But everybody else, though, if they want to reach out to him.
We do it right now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, well,
now that I'm awake.
Well, let's finish the podcast first, then you can do it.
I can multitask, Charles.
All right. But next up everywhere, we talk Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. And if you're interested in co-hosting, being a special guest companion, especially now that Jesse's, on the disabled list for the foreseeable future, I would definitely appreciate it. So I just posted the latest updated list of episodes we haven't discussed yet, or a list of episodes that, we could do commentaries for, and Big Finish audios and whatnot. So, and that includes Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures. So I just posted that on our Next Stop Everywhere page on Facebook. So I know that if Xan Sprouse would peruse that list and fire off a few episodes.
I haven't looked at that list either.
Yeah, I know. Well,
we're out of Auton episodes, so I feel like there's no need for me.
But we could do Auton commentaries. I'm just saying.
This is very true.
Especially for Rose.
Right.
That's only 45 minutes. That would be perfect, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Rose, run.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of which, the whole Gold Standard crew has apparently not gotten back to me on this. So I'm calling all of you out, not just you on this one.
Yeah.
You're all slacking. You're slackers.
You want to be a slacker for the rest of your life?
Right.
Is that on our drunk cinema list? Because if it's not, it really needs to be.
Yeah, it should be, right? It should be. Yes.
It really needs to be.
We need to have Back to the Future on there. Yes.
Yeah, we totally do.
Yeah, we totally do. All right. So, and then last but certainly not least, the Phantom Zone podcast I do with DJ Nick, Zan's co-host on Gold Standard, where, right now we just finished watching The Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was excellent. And we're going to be trying to fill the gap between now and Loki that's coming up in June, it'll be June, I believe. So we're going to do like 2 episodes a week of Jupiter's Legacy, which is this Netflix series based on the Mark Millar and Frank Whiteley Image comic book series. And it's going to be interesting. It premieres just later this week. I mean, I've read the comic, but Nick hasn't. So he's going into it really cold. But we'll see if it's any good or not.
Okay.
So there's 8 episodes. So to fill up a month, we're just going to do 2 episodes a week on the Phantom Zone. So I hope everybody checks that out, tunes in.
The first episode wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you kind of got a sneak preview, didn't you? You and Chris. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious. I'm kind of jealous because you've already seen it, and I have to wait a couple more. Well, actually, tomorrow I believe it's out. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah,
I have to wait that long. Not much longer.
Yeah.
So. But I hope everybody checks it out because I think it'll be a fun discussion, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So other than that, though, next time on Ghostwood, episode 98, as we discuss what Xan referred to earlier, the second episode of Hotel Room, which is called Getting Rid of Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like Zan's already got a couple things she wants to discuss when we talk about this episode.
This one stars Griffin Dunn. I have a lot of things to discuss because I love some Griffin Dunn.
Even more than Crispin Glover?
No.
Okay.
No. There are not many things in this world that I love more than Crispin Glover.
Okay. What about Rob Lowe?
But I mean, we eventually will be talking about Griffin Dunn on Drunk Cinema when we do Johnny Dangerously.
Oh, that's right. He's Johnny's brother. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So, because if I don't get laid, I'm going to die. Which is probably the best line he's ever uttered on film.
Yeah, probably. And, I'm sure.
The way he delivers that line is fantastic.
Right.
Because if I don't get laid, I'm going to die.
And every teenage boy could totally identify with, right?
Tried going to Bad Girls, but for a clean-cut kid like me, it's just no dice. How do you get laid in 1930?
God, now I want to talk Johnny Dangerously.
I I know, right?
Right.
No, Griffin Dunne is one of my all-time favorite actors. He can do anything. He's funny. He's terrifying. He's a sad sack. He's dramatic. He's a romantic lead. Anybody who is a fan of Griffin Dunne or just a fan of awesomeness,
yeah,
needs to see the movie After Hours. After Hours is an amazing movie. Have you ever seen that one, Charles?
I have not. I haven't. What's it about?
I would say we should add it to Drunk Cinema, but it's almost like too good of a movie.
It's too good for us. Well, we're doing Raiders. Yeah. That's a great movie.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, we could do it, but it would definitely be something I'd want you to watch before we talked about it.
We did Wrath of Khan. That was a great movie. Young Frankenstein. So we do great movies.
Griffin Dunne is also in Amazon Women on the Moon. Again, something else I think we should talk about.
Yeah.
On Dark Cinema. But right. Yeah, Griffin Dunne comes from a very famous family. He is the son of Dominic Dunne, the writer and what's the best word I can think of, legal consultant.
Okay.
And he had his own show for a while on, I want to say either Court TV or ID or something like that about true crime.
You're big on true crime, so I'm gathering you've watched this a number of times.
The whole family is very much an advocate for victims, because Griffin Dunne's sister is Monique Dunne, who famous for being in Poltergeist, the older sister in Poltergeist, who was murdered by her boyfriend. She was killed in domestic violence.
Oh no!
And the Dunne family, I will love them forever for doing this, because it was the early 80s, and her boyfriend murdered her in a jealous rage and got off because he was not in his right mind or whatever bullshit.
Temporary insanity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, those kind of things. And he was a chef. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't even know if he's still alive. I don't remember his name, that bastard.
Right.
So he got a job at a restaurant, and the Dunnes stood outside the restaurant, not on the restaurant property, but
the street
at the side, going into the driveway, things like that.
Yeah.
And handed out these little leaflets that said, "We just want you to know that if you eat here, the hands that prepared your meal today killed our daughter."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
because they were on public property, they couldn't do anything about it. Yeah.
And people would turn around and walk out, and so the restaurant they had to say, "Dude, you can't work here. We're not gonna stay open if you keep working here." And they did that a few times, I think.
Interesting.
And is that not the classiest example of vigilante justice you've ever heard in your life?
Right. Well, I mean, it's very nonviolent at least, so that's good.
Yeah, it's just very nonviolent. It's very polite. It's very classy. They were definitely a very well-to-do, in the right circles kind of family. But yeah, the hands that prepared your meal today murdered our daughter. They just had that written on a piece of paper, and people just left.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're very victims' rights type of a family. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right,
but yeah, I really love Griffin Dunne. He's great.
All right. Well, that's a great anecdote there. All right. So, like Xan said, I'm sure we're going to get more anecdotes next time. So, everybody, please, like I said, keep Jesse Jackson in your thoughts. Reach out to him. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And
I just did.
There you go. See how easy it is? Just like that. And so then come on back next time on Ghostwood, episode 98, Getting Rid of Robert, the second episode of Hotel Room, right here on Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Goodbye, everybody.